Hello and welcome to Twisted Britain, a podcast on true crime in Britain with a sprinkling of the weird and the macabre. And your hosts are me, Bob Dale.
And me, Nadine Ryle. We're a couple of friends who met in the pub and developed a friendship based on our mutual love of booze, podcasts and pub quizzes. We met in the Settle Inn in Stirling, and that's where we record.
Each week we both tell a story of something twisted, one long one and one short one. And we decide who goes first.
Based on the flip of a coin.
And I'm on short story this week.
You are indeedy.
Good, I'm glad you agreed, because that's what I've written.
How are you?
I'm alright, yeah. Just, we've managed to scare away most of the people in the back of the pub, so...
Well, it's probably you.
Back in our... Well, it is, it's fine. I came in just growling.
Like a rabid dog.
That's good. It means we get to sit not in the cellar tonight.
Whoop whoop. And I'm off work tomorrow, which means...
Clink.
Clink clink, I'm drinking.
We could actually just do, yeah.
Clink clink. Lovely.
Well, I am anyway.
What?
I'm just drinking anyway.
I thought you meant I am clink clinking anyway, and I was like, what is happening?
I don't know. How's you? You alright?
Yeah, I'm alright. Had an interesting week.
Yeah, you were telling me about some dog shit, basically.
Oh yeah, that's just my daily. But last week on my way home from recording,
yeah, that's right.
I ended up having my first ever sit in a police car on my way home.
And it wasn't a sexy sit.
I wish it was. Unfortunately not.
You had a crap time on the way home, didn't you?
I did indeed. So I was driving on home back to Glasgow, and a lorry ahead of me had a blowout, and I ended up running over his tyre in the middle of the road on the motorway in the pitch black and pissing rain. So that's fun. So my car is in the car hospital, and the police had to come because there was a tyre in the road, so I thought I should do my duty and phone the police and make them aware of further road accidents, should there be any. Luckily not. And because I'd been sat in the rain and the cold in my little lonesome car for quite a while, they let me sit in the back of the police car, which was really fun.
Did they let you play with the sirens?
No, but rather embarrassingly, one of them came down to my car and talked to me and stuff. What happened? Blah, blah, blah. Had a chat. And then he was like, oh, come and sit in the car. And I was like, okay. We went back to the car, and as we were getting to the car, he was then on his radio reporting the incident, and I just opened the front passenger door and just got right in the front, and then he got in and sat down and looked at me. He was like, no, sorry, my colleague's coming back in a second, you have to sit in the back. And I was like, oh, sorry.
Yeah, that is not the place for you.
Oopsie daisy.
There's too many buttons.
Then I sat in the back, but it was quite nice. But you know what I'm like, blah 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 blah, so I'm sitting in the back just chatting my head off to them. It was quite fun. Told them all about the podcast.
Good. I hope. Well, if you're listening, hello.
Hello. Thank you for coming to my rescue and warming up my feet.
Anyway. Well, my night home, travel home the other week was nowhere near as exciting as yours.
Oh.
I was sound asleep probably before you hit a tyre.
Lucky you. I was out and I didn't get into my flat until about 2:45 in the bloody morning.
What have I been up to? Oh, I met a friend from school that I've not seen in about 6 years on Saturday night. Yeah, it was good actually. It was really good fun. And obviously told them all about the podcast.
Hello, if you're listening.
And other than, just been drunk all weekend really.
Oh, lucky. I've been working all weekend.
Yeah, sorry about that.
That's all right.
How's your research gone?
Yeah, it's gone well actually. I've gone quite different actually for myself.
Is it a nice story? Is it about ghosts?
No.
No, it is different then.
How was yours?
Good. Yeah, I'm finished in inverted commas writing it before we started reading, but there's a wee bits at the end that I'll go into. But there was two many possible streams for the end of it that I've gone, I'm going to tell the story and then we can have a blether.
Nice. Our usual then.
Sounds good to me. Shall we go?
Yeah, shall we just? Well, you've not even got a coin ready.
At least I don't have my laptop restarting this week. That's all right.
Right. I'm going to say... I can't remember what I called last time. Heads, you go first.
It's heads.
Hey.
I shall go first. And like I said, I was on short story this week. And...
Joe, I just realised that we need to follow up on. We never answered the riddle we set.
We didn't. So the question, if you've listened to last week's episode, that I won £200 in the raffle,
whoop, whoop,
was a piece of...
something that you would wear to bed.
Yes. And that had 5 consonants in a row in it, and the answer is night dress.
That is night dress.
So if you got that, well done. If you obviously didn't even notice that we hadn't said it, so thanks very much, everyone. I did win £200 this week again.
You're so jammy. You've got all the luck. You must have stolen mine.
Yeah. this week's question. Do you want that one just now?
Yeah, please. Why not? Shall we?
We'll try and remember it at the end this time. What specifically does a lux meter measure?
Spell Lux.
Lux.
Oh, not with an E on the end.
No, that'd be lux.
Lux. I don't know that one. I look forward to the answer.
There you go. Anyway, so back to what we were actually talking about.
Count. Could you?
I was going to start my Spies miniseries.
I thought that's what was going to happen.
But I had this one in the back of my head anyway.
Okay.
And I couldn't decide which spy to start with.
Also, as a short as well, it's a tough decision.
Yeah, so I'm going to have a look at and I found a couple of different ones that I'll maybe cover as one long and then break it down for short ones and bits and pieces. But this is completely different. It's got nothing to do with anybody spying on anybody.
Oh.
But it does have some crime in it.
Okay.
So,
well, that sounds reasonable to me.
Let me just grab my notes. So this is the story of John Babbacome Lee.
Oh, Babbacome.
Babbacome is the name of the town that, or village-ish, that his mishap happened in, shall we say. But yeah, John Lee was the man. He was actually the man they couldn't hang.
I like this.
John Babbacome Lee was a petty thief who was found guilty of the murder of his employer in Babbacome Bay in Torquay and sentenced to death. John was hanged 3 times on the 23rd of February 1885, but walked out of prison in 1907.
Wowee.
John Lee was born in Devon in a small village called Abbotskerwell and is in 1864 to parents John Lee Sr. and Mary Lee. He left school early. I've written early here, but actually probably for the day it wasn't that early, kind of 14, 15-ish.
Yeah.
And took up work as a servant in a house called The Glen in the tiny village of Babbacome. His employer was Emily Keyes, and in this job he worked alongside his half-sister, Elizabeth Harris, and his full sister, Amelia Lee. Now, when I was reading through this, I couldn't find which the half-sister came from. I don't think it really matters, but I didn't know whether maybe Dad had been married before,
right.
or either way, he worked with 2 of his sisters.
Cool.
He worked there till he was about 16 and left to join the Navy, and became a seaman roaming the waves.
Lovely.
However, he didn't last long in the Navy. He didn't have exactly an aspiring naval career. He was, in fact, invalided out within a couple of years of joining. So something had happened to him, and they were like, "You're no use to us on the boat.
Get out.
Off you go."
Bye-bye.
So after leaving the Navy, he struggled to hold down a job. But he managed to get a job as a servant in a different house to Colonel Edward Brownlow, who also lived in Torquay. This is where temptation got the better of John.
Uh-oh.
And having watched one of the maids polishing all the house silver, he decided that he could just maybe take a few bits and pieces and nobody'd notice. So while the Colonel was away from the house, on holiday I think, John helped himself to some of the silverware. He was caught in a way we've seen before. He took the silver to a pawn shop, and in this pawn shop in Plymouth, there was kind of suspicion about the origin of these pieces. Like, John wasn't a pauper, he wasn't a hugely poor man, but he wasn't a man that should have this amount of silver. Yeah. And the pawn broker reported them to the police as a suspicion, and John Lee was arrested. He was charged and found guilty of petty theft. Not that petty, though, silverware, I wouldn't think.
I don't think that's petty, really, no.
And he was arrested, charged, and found guilty of the theft. Now, in these days, stealing from your employer was like, well, you steal from the hand that feeds you. It was really, really frowned upon. And as such, he was sentenced to jail. And here's an extract from the paper at the time.
I could see that from afar that you had that there, and I was quite excited about it.
Torquay, a dishonest footman.
Ooh.
John Lee, footman, was indicted for stealing a pair of silver candlesticks, 2 plated dittos, silver snuffers, and a tray, and other articles. Sorry. The property was all of the Honourable Colonel E. Brownlow. On the 28th of April, 1883, Mr. Auburn MP, on behalf of the prisoner, who pleaded guilty, addressed the court in mitigation of punishment. He put in several letters to his good character. However, he was sentenced to 6 months hard labour imprisonment.
Ouchie.
Not too bad, I suppose.
It could be worse, but also back then, 6 months hard labour, would rather not.
Probably really hard labour.
Were those snuffers worth it now, John, huh?
Now, when I was writing this and I copy and pasted this wee snippet, I was actually watching like Antiques Road Trip.
Nice.
And they had one of the wee silver sniffers.
Roadshow, but okay.
No, the Road Trip one.
Oh, sorry.
No, don't question me on my antiques shows.
Sorry.
Big fan. It's like a wee snuff box that you open up and inside there's a grill, and underneath it you'd put a wee sponge with some perfume on it.
Cute.
So as you're walking down the street and there's like loads of horse shit everywhere and everything,
Have a wee snifter.
you'd just like fill your nostrils.
Have a little sniff.
You wouldn't hold it to, you'd just have a big huff of it, and that would get you through the smelly part.
Lovely. Well, in this sense, though, a snuffer is, I presume, a candle snuffer.
Oh, possibly.
It's
I was thinking, oh yeah, of
Snuff
course.
out that candle.
No, you're right enough. That goes also with the candlesticks that you
Yeah,
nicked.
it's a set, I'd imagine.
I don't know what two-plated dittos are,
I don't know. I'll have a little Google whilst you continue.
but yeah, I just assumed snuff boxes.
No, snuffers
Well,
will be a candle snuffer.
There's a tiny bit of information for you about snuff
Well,
boxes.
I enjoyed it anyway.
There you go. So John Lee served his sentence without any issues. Just as far as I know, he went and did his hard labour, and however, with the help of his half sister Elizabeth, managed to convince Emma Keyes at the Glen to re-employ him, and this time he got a job as a footman at her house.
Pause. I think it appears from my quick Google that ditto, rather than being a thing, is a style of plate.
Oh, okay.
It's all over here is like ditto pattern plates, ditto plate, blah blah blah.
Okay.
I think it's like a specific brand or type patterned plate.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. 2 pieces of silver knowledge for you.
Lovely.
So yeah, like I say, John gets a job back at the Glen to Emma Keyes. Now, Emma Keyes is basically a spinstered woman. She was the last one of the family that lived in this house. It's a beautiful house. I found the floor plan of it and everything. I wouldn't have said it was a huge cottage. I would have said it was a cottage, but not a huge house. I'll show you I'll put up the floor plans
Lovely.
afterwards. So he works there, no bother, for about 10 months. And as of early November 1884, John manages to fuck up again. He steals this time a guitar from the Glen and sold it to a local music shop in Torquay. When the guitar was traced to the owner, Mrs. Keyes decided not to press charges or even fire him. Instead, she just reduced his wages. And a bit of speculation on my part, probably because his half-sister was there and had been a really good member of staff, and she was the cook at this point. So she's probably gone, please don't fire him, he's got nowhere else to go. So instead, she just halved his wages. Fair enough, I suppose. Either way, this turned out to be a huge mistake on her part. So in the early hours of November the 14th in 1884, Elizabeth, the half-sister, was woken by the smell of smoke. She discovered, on looking around the house, she discovers several fires burning and also finds John in the hallway in his socks and trousers. He claims to have broken the windows to let the smoke out. He was covered in blood from a cut on his arm, and, well, we'll come back to the cut in the arm in a bit. He helped Elizabeth to wake the other residents of the house, which was 2 other servants, and they went looking for Emma Keyes. They discovered her body lying in the front room.
Can I make a guess as to what caused the fires?
Oh, you can.
Lack of snuffers.
The snuffers are gone.
Snuffers are gone. How are you going to put out the candles? You can't. Now they're on fire.
That were the Colonel's snuffers, though. Different
Oh,
house.
yeah. Good point. Sorry.
Either Elizabeth or John, one of the 2 of them, ran to the local pub, and with help from the people in the pub and a couple of local fishermen, they managed to get back to the house and get the fire under control. So when I read that, I guess the house wasn't ablaze.
Yeah, it was just like, ooh, there's a couple of fires here.
They actually found 5 different fires in the house.
It's a lot, isn't it?
That
doesn't sound like a coincidence to me.
When they get back inside, having got it a bit under control, they find, having had a proper look at the body of Mrs. Keyes, that her throat had been cut and she'd suffered a severe blow to the head. Papers soaked in paraffin had been set around the body and set alight in an attempt to destroy the body.
That is a really stupid way to go about it, isn't it? That's not going to work very well.
So basically what they'd found was a half-charred, throat-slit body lying and
Cooked on the edges.
Surrounded by fire.
It's fucking stupid.
They also found blood outside of the hall that she was found in the hall outside of the room she was found in.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a couple of accounts here that I haven't written down, but I was going to talk about them anyway. John obviously helped to put the fires out, and one of the things that the local fishermen did, and that was they hacked the timbers out of the building. So they cut the timbers out of the roof and stuff like that to stop.
Oh, to stop it like catching
it, because it was
that's quite extreme, isn't it?
I'll show you a picture of the house, but it was like a thatched roof and everything like that. So
God,
they tried
that's
to
going to go up.
Stop that all happening. John, by all accounts, was very, very quick to try and give them a hatchet that he used in his role to cut that out.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I'll go back to speculation. She suffered a huge blow to the head, and if you start using the hatchet to chop all the wood out, any signs of blood or are gone because you've been chopping it about. Anyway, it was noted that he was very, very, here's my hatchet, here's mine, take my one, use this one. But
as opposed to what the pocket hatchets that the fishermen were just carrying with them, were they?
So John Lee was not able to give a proper account of where the cut on his arm had come from, other than they must have happened when they broke the window. But the blood stains that were coming, that were on him, seemed to have come from a cut on the other arm, rather than the cuts that he was showing from the window. So it's a bit like, not quite sure. And he was also very vague as to recounting his timeline for the entire evening. And based on the facts of his past and his inability to explain the details of that night, he was arrested. And we're like,
I think that sounds fair.
We're going to have a wee chat with you. So the evidence against him basically is, while searching the property, they found in a drawer in the pantry where he bedded down in the evening, there was a bloodstained knife. There was a paraffin can near his bed that was found to be empty. John basically said, no, I was asleep when Elizabeth woke up and started yelling about the fire.
No, you weren't, bloody liar, in your trousers and socks on the landing, I remember.
Exactly. So as such, he was tried on the 2nd of February in the following year in Exeter. And like you, there seems to have been absolutely no doubt about his guilt on the part of the court and the jury. Mm-hmm. But he basically claimed he still claimed he didn't do it. Several people testified him that he had made threats against Mrs. Keyes, and he talked about burning the house down at some point. But basically, his defense throughout the whole thing was that the Lord would do the right thing for him.
Mm-hmm.
So he basically was going along the lines of, look, I didn't do this. I didn't have anything to gain by this. She cut my wages, okay, so I'm a bit angry about that, but I've still got a job and I've got somewhere to sleep, and I didn't do this at all. Either way, he was found guilty of the crime. Mm-hmm. And here are the words that the judge used on the day.
Excited.
John Henry George Lee, you have been found guilty of willful murder by a jury of your peers. The sentence of the court is you be taken from this place to a lawful prison and thence placed of execution, where you shall be hanged by the neck until you are dead. Oh,
your favourite.
And that your body be afterwards cut down and buried within the precincts of the prison which you were last confined before execution. And may the Lord God have mercy upon your soul. Amen. Remove the prisoner.
Oofty. Final.
Which apparently John replied with, Amen.
Amen.
He, a man of God, apparently believed that the Lord was going to do the right thing for him.
Well, I'm excited because you started with an interesting fact, and I feel like it's coming up.
Here's where it gets slightly odd.
Here we go.
So on the 23rd of February, on the 23rd of February, 1885, John Lee was taken to the gallows. As per the norm that morning, it had been tested with a sandbag. So what they basically did was they put on the trapdoor, they put a sandbag with a noose on it, pulled the lever, sandbag drops through.
It's easy working.
That's fine, no problem at all. All working, so they take him to the gallows, hood over the head. Noose around the neck, levers pulled, nothing happens.
Interesting.
Okay, bit of a misfire.
Oopsie daisy.
We've all had that. So the gallows are reset, retested, and again, works perfectly with a sandbag. John is brought back to the trapdoor, noose placed around his neck, and the lever pulled again. Nothing happens. The hangman at this point is getting a bit pissed off and sends John back to his cell while they have a proper examination of what's going on. And after more testing, he's convinced that everything is working and it's all fine now. And however, they bring John back, stand him in what should be his last stance on Earth, and the lever gets pulled. Nothing happens.
The Lord has forsaken he.
At this point, they make the decision that to try a fourth time is inhumane, and they send him back to his cell to have the matter deferred to the Home Secretary. After consideration that they had tried to carry out the sentence, the decision comes back that John should be jailed for life without the possibility of parole. John Lee continues to appeal to the Home Secretary and several different Home Secretaries for 22 years, until finally, in 1907, having spent 22 years in jail, he is released. The Home Office order an investigation into what happened. Like, how did this happen 3 times in a row? And basically the results of it is that something's happened during the moving of the gallows to its position, and something's twisted in it and the trapdoor's gone wrong.
Right.
God didn't do it. And as such, the hinges weren't dropping. They were working for the sandbag, but he was creating too much weight on it
okay.
to make it drop. So John, after leaving jail in 1907... So yeah, this is where John gets into a bit of a myth status. There's loads of kind of, not public outcry as such, but there's loads of people that basically say maybe he didn't do it. Because when you look at the evidence, maybe he was just being helpful with a hatchet.
I suppose.
Maybe he did just cut his arm open, trying to break the windows to get the smoke out.
Suppose.
Maybe somebody else broke in and stole the knife out of the pantry while he was not in the room and murdered them. So,
but for what?
Nobody knows. So the murder of Emily Keyes, it remains unsolved to this day.
Jeez, oh.
So
it's an odd one, this one, Bob.
So the big thing about him is he's the only man in history known to have survived 3 hanging attempts. He also, the official statement on what happened to John Lees is that he illegally travelled to America, where he made a fortune telling his story. He did write a book called The Man They Couldn't Hang.
Very good title.
But there's loads of speculation about maybe he just stayed in the area and became like a hermit, and not quite a hermit, but like maybe he stayed there. But the stuff I could find that I went, that sounds right, is he buggered off to America illegally. Because that's what he did. He did things illegally.
Well.
But yeah, there is a consensus record, a death record, that a man under the name of James Lee died in 1945, and he was the man who released the book The Man They Could Not Hang.
Well, that's interesting. 1945. That's a pretty full life he's lived on there.
Yeah. So there is a gravestone located in Milwaukee that is attributed to him.
That's very cool.
But like I say, it's unknown what happened to his life properly other than this book was released. It's unknown whether he was actually the committer of the crime. And nobody knows who really killed Emily Keyes, because nothing...
Well, that's sad for her.
Yeah, that was the point I missed out. Nothing was taken from the house. Like there was no...
There's no theft.
No. There was somebody had gone for revenge of us, but this spinster didn't have anything to do. She was, by all accounts, a nice woman. She didn't fire him.
Yeah. This is an awful shame, this story.
Yeah, it's a really sad one. But
it's an interesting one, this. How did you come across this?
I don't actually remember. I found it a few weeks ago now, and I think it was... I thought I'd told the story before, and I was convinced right up until like a couple of days ago that I was like, I've told a story about a guy that didn't hang before.
It wasn't this one for sure.
But it definitely wasn't this.
It wasn't this one.
And I would remember this one because he was the only man to have survived 3 attempts. So yeah, that's the kind of odd wee story. Like I did say to you earlier.
That was good, I like that.
So yeah, I'd like to go to Babbacome.
Yes, yeah.
The Glen, the cottage.
Sounds lovely.
It's now the public toilets.
Oh. Well,
from what I could see, it seems to be that the public toilets in Babbacome are where Emily Keyes was murdered in her house.
probably
So-
haunted.
Well, I mean, the sick thought that went through my head when I read that was at least if everybody's peeing in there, it's not going to catch fire again.
Well, that was horrible.
Sorry. Not a nice way to finish that, but these are the thoughts that go in my head.
Oh, and now they're out to the world.
So that's.
I enjoyed that hugely. What do you think? What's your thoughts? Genuinely.
I think he did it.
You think he did it?
I think he.
Well, I just think who else would have done it and like got away and not like the other people in the house didn't hear nor see anything. The fact that Elizabeth,
The half sister, yeah.
that she was like roused for some reason in her sleep and was like, oh, the house is on fire, and then found her brother like in socks and trousers, like
Covered in blood.
covered in blood, and going, I broke the window. Like, could you not just open them?
Yeah, probably. The thing is, the lying about him being asleep is what.
Yeah, it's
what
like an
got
odd
me.
one.
I'm not convinced by the knife in the drawer. That could have been anybody. I'm not convinced by the hatchet because that's a wee story rather than a reported thing.
And like how I like jokingly kind of like picked at there.
Yeah.
Oh, he was too willing to offer me his hatchet. Well, I'm sorry. Did you have your hatchet on you at
Yeah,
the time?
exactly.
For like, sorry, no, thank you, John. I'll use my own that I'm just carrying around with me at all times of the day. No, you didn't have a hatchet. So like, of course he was like, oh, here's a hatchet. Please use it. Like,
Yeah.
let's not set the house on fire.
As always, the sad fact of this is that
We'll never bloody know.
we'll never know what happened to Mrs. Keyes other than somebody tried to dispose
brutally
of her.
murdered her.
Yeah,
So what? Bashed to the head and also slit throat.
bashed the head, slit throat, and tried to be burned.
Not a very nice way to go, is it?
I hope the bash of the head came first.
Yeah.
Of those things, that's
Yeah, that's the one I'd want to go
yeah.
first.
lovely wee bay.
Lovely.
Babbacome, it looks cracking.
In fact, I'm glad you can finally say it.
Yeah, thanks. Took quite a few attempts throughout that. If I don't manage to edit that out, you'll have heard it. But otherwise, I struggled with Babbacome. Yeah, there you go.
That was good. I love that. Thank you.
I don't think I answered your question there. I think I found it just based on. I think I googled something along the lines of people who escaped execution.
You love a good miscarriage of justice, you.
Yeah, and this one, I don't think goes under a list of miscarriage of justice because if he didn't do it, he got out. If he did do it,
He served time.
he served time. So something's been served.
At least.
Yeah, there you go.
Lovely, thank you.
That's my story for the evening.
Shall we go and get a little drink? Your glass is rather empty, sir.
Let's refill that. We'll see you in a
Alright.
minute.
We'll see you in a sec.
Hi, true crime fans. I'm Erin.
And I'm Shea. We host All Crime No Cattle, a conversational podcast which focuses on true crime stories from the Lone Star State.
We strive to bring you a balanced and well-researched story about Texas cases big and small.
We do the research so you don't have to.
We also end every episode with a good news story, just to remind everyone that real life isn't quite as depressing as true crime can make it out to be.
New episodes drop every Thursday, and you can find us wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. All Crime No Cattle, because crime is bigger in Texas, y'all.
And that's us back.
Hello.
Sorry, I keep doing that every time you take a drink. I start talking. Sorry about that. So just before you joined me up here, I heard probably one of the best sentences I've ever heard in the pub.
Hit me.
Don't let him smell your stomach.
Good advice.
I think that's a rule for life, to be honest.
Don't let them smell your stomach.
Yeah.
Would you like to reveal the answer to your riddle before I forget?
Oh, I could do that. A lux meter measures the intensity of light.
Do you know, I thought it was going to be that because when you buy light bulbs, it's like, oh no, that's lumens.
That's lumens, yeah.
But I thought it was going to be something to do with light.
So the only reason I knew it was because I've got my camera and all my studio
Of
lights and stuff,
course.
and I have a lux meter.
Very nice. Good question.
So for everybody that doesn't know, the way it works is we buy our raffle tickets, they draw at the end of the night, you go up, you can answer one of 3 questions.
Which you can't see. They're mystery questions. You have to just lift one at random.
And I always pick the middle one. Always pick the middle one.
Yeah.
It turns out I didn't know the answer to the other 2.
Very nice.
Well, I did know the answer to one of the other ones, but I would have got it wrong.
Right.
Which was when did Aaron Senna die in a crash? And I knew it was something. I knew it was 1994, but I wouldn't have said it.
That's the year I was born.
There you go. It's the year I started high school, but never mind.
Shall we? You ready?
Let's please.
Okay, so I've gone for something a bit different, as I said.
Well, you are a bit different, so it's fine.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
That's a compliment. So, I'm telling you the story of a fella called Jagmeet Channa.
Sweet name.
Yeah, I know. Great name. Also, that's a great song. Jagmeet Channa. So, he was sentenced to 9 years in prison back in 2008. He was accused of attempting to carry out the most audacious bank fraud in British history.
You like a bank heist.
I love a good robbery, don't I?
Yeah.
But it's been a while.
It has.
So, Channa planned and almost succeeded in stealing £72 million from inside the London HQ of the HSBC banking group.
My best mate works for them. Wasn't him.
Oh, no, not Jagmeet. Channa is from Ilford, which is in East London. He was raised as part of a respectable middle-class family. After leaving Seven Kings High School with 4 A-levels, Channa went to the University of Hertfordshire to get his degree in economics. He funded his education through part-time positions as shop floor assistants and received glowing references from them. By all accounts, he was a very nice man, and he was known to volunteer for charities, and he didn't have any criminal convictions at all.
Okay.
So an all-round good fella.
Yeah, lovely man.
Channa had only worked for HSBC for 10 months before attempting to steal from them. He arrived at the company on a short-term contract, but he was recognised quickly as a good worker and was asked to stay permanently. Channa, who was only 25 at the time, came across to his colleagues as quiet, softly spoken, studious and diligent. His colleagues trusted him and couldn't possibly imagine what he was planning to do. It was shortly after 9 a.m. on Friday the 18th of April 2008, while working at HSBC's Canary Wharf headquarters, that Channa authorised 2 seemingly straightforward transactions, but they were actually made using passwords that he'd stolen from colleagues.
Okay.
He first wired €60 million, which is the equivalent to £48 million, to an account with the French bank Société Générale.
Very good.
Thanks. Which is based in Casablanca, Morocco.
Yes.
Moments later, he then transferred €30 million, which is £24 million.
Just a wee transfer this time.
Just a wee one.
Yeah.
To a branch of Barclays in Manchester, England. The transactions went unnoticed, and that evening, everyone left work as per usual, and Channa acted as if nothing were wrong at all.
Okay.
It's a Friday evening. See you all later. Have a nice weekend. He normally went off home to his parents for the weekend. See ya. No problem.
Did he bugger off to Morocco this time?
He did not.
Ah.
Under his calm exterior, though, Channa was absolutely buzzing. See, every now and again, I forget. I'm just writing in my colloquial writing, and I write something like absolutely buzzing.
But I think absolutely buzzing's fine.
He was absolutely buzzing. He just pulled off the biggest theft of money to ever have been committed within the UK. Ever.
What was the Millennium Dome one you did?
It wasn't Millennium Dome.
What the Diamond Heist one?
It wasn't diamonds. It was the...
Did we talk about the Millennium Dome during it?
No.
No? Okay.
'Cause I don't know about it. But I don't know, maybe I did. Maybe I think maybe I did like a statistics of like these were like the other like biggest ones. But the one that you're talking about was a Cash Depot robbery.
That's right. Sorry, that's the one I'm thinking of.
And that is currently the biggest
that was
to happen.
Heathrow.
I think it was down near there.
Yeah.
So transcripts of telephone calls made from his HSBC landline that Friday revealed a series of calls informing several characters that the fraud had been a success.
Okay.
It turned out that Channa was the inside man for a syndicate who were looking to orchestrate a crime so severe that it would have shaken public confidence in the banking system during a period of time when there was acute economic uncertainty in the country. So it would have totally fucked everything up.
Yep.
But it luckily hadn't been successful. Around lunchtime on the following Sunday, which was the 20th of April 2008, Channa's plan was rumbled. Banking security officials 9,000 miles away in Malaysia noted a double transaction, which prompted cause for concern, as they would call it. That's a bit unusual. Let's have a wee peek into that. Channa had used a global financial holding account, where vast amounts of money are paid in and then removed, like as per usual. At the close of daily trading, though, the account should register 0. You move money into it, you move money out of it. At the end of the trading, should equal 0.
Just used as a holding zone for stuff, right?
Yeah, you just hold things in there and move it on. But he'd forgotten to change it. So this account was showing that it was holding a massive amount of debt, £72 million.
That's a big overdraft.
That's a big one, isn't it?
Yeah, totally.
That's something that you're going to notice. It was a really silly error that if he'd avoided, it might have allowed him to pull off the record-breaking theft.
So they reckon that if he zeroed that account, essentially, it wouldn't have been flagged up.
Not that fast.
Right, okay.
Not that quickly, anyway. The fact he committed the fraud on a Friday also made this mistake even worse. Trading freezes over the weekends, so security officials find it much easier to detect anomalies at this time.
Okay.
Had he committed the crime during the week when the accounts are busy and there are lots of transactions happening, then his scam may have remained undetected for long enough to allow the £72 million to be emptied from the accounts in Manchester, Morocco.
Right.
But because it was over the weekend, the officials, they do all their checks and, look into it all the time. That's what they're there for.
Yeah.
And because there was no trading happening, it's much faster for them to go through all the accounts. Blah, blah, blah. Oh, that's weird. What's that big overdraft?
Yeah, okay.
Noticed it immediately and started their investigation.
Yep.
If he'd been successful, Chana would have stolen more than 27 times the amount that was taken during the Great Train Robbery back in '63, one of the biggest robberies in our country, and almost £20 million more than the used notes that were stolen in 2006 during an armed raid on a Kent cash depot. Kent, not Heathrow.
Yeah, okay.
Which is what I covered in episode 3, all those times ago.
Well, that's a while ago,
That's
isn't
a long time ago.
That's why I was struggling to remember
Yeah,
it.
that's same. Yeah. So back in episode 3, I talked about the big cash depot robbery, which is the biggest robbery in our country currently.
Yeah, okay.
And this would have been £20 million more than that.
Right, okay.
So this is massive. As soon as it was discovered, the £72 million was frozen and returned to HSBC. Meanwhile, the City of London police arrested and then quickly released the 2 colleagues whose identities Chana had stolen. Analysis of the CCTV cameras on the 43rd floor of HSBC's headquarters confirmed that only Chana could be responsible for the transactions.
Right, so he's stolen the identities and passwords of a couple of people.
Yeah.
And
they were arrested, investigated, and very quickly, that definitely wasn't you, released.
They were like, we don't have 73 million quid.
No, it's not us.
Yeah, fine.
72. And then were released.
Okay.
And then they looked into CCTV. Who could have possibly done it? Oh, it was that guy there.
I was watching something during the week, just to interject at this point.
Please do.
It was one of these BBC investigations type shows, and you can buy people's details online for a couple of quid.
Yeah.
Literally a couple of pound and you can get your details found online.
Do you know what the scariest thing I heard recently was? So I met this interesting guy, friend of a friend. He's a civil servant. He works in cybersecurity for our government. And he's on call all the time. If something attacks our cybersecurity in Scotland, he's the guy that goes fixes it.
It's amazing what you find on Tinder.
Isn't it? No. Friend of a friend. And I was chatting away to him anyway. And he was telling me that on the dark web, for a measly, I think, how much did he say it was? Something like $500, something like that. Not a lot of money. For $500 on the dark web, you can hire somebody to ruin somebody's life. And what they do is these cyber hacker people get inside your laptop and very, very slowly, over time, just drop a few images of a pedophilic nature in there. Boop. And there's a few more, boop, into a little folder hidden away on your computer that if you don't know it's there, you're never going to look for it and find it. Yeah. And then one day, somebody tips off the police that you're a pedophile. They seize your goods, they look on your laptop, here's a whole lot of images that you can't prove you didn't download. How terrifying is that?
Worst thing on the planet? Human beings.
Yup. How scary is that, though?
Yeah,
that's terrifying.
It's really terrifying.
And then there was a case down in England where somebody did this to this man, tried to discredit him and ruin his life. And he was arrested and he was taken to court and stuff. It went that far. And the only reason that he was found innocent was that the hacker had been a very, very lazy hacker and had just dropped hundreds of images all at the same time that were all from different sources. And they were like, there's no way that you could have downloaded all of these images at the same time from all these different sources. This definitely wasn't you. But by that time, all his family and friends had deserted him. His wife had left him. His kids wouldn't talk to him. And even though you're declared innocent, once somebody's labeled you pedo, it's kind of very difficult to shake that.
Yeah, that's true.
Isn't that horrendous? Anyway, side note, but Jesus.
Yeah.
Still crime related. So 5 days after committing the transaction, Chana was arrested. He didn't offer any explanation for his crime, and he decided to remain silent. So I tried to look into this. I only found a few references. Like, there isn't even a Wikipedia page on this. Like,
okay.
Yeah, like,
How did you manage to do this research then?
Actually, most of my information came from a really, really good article from The Guardian.
Okay.
Very good article. I'd recommend giving it a read. But the way that they speak about it and a couple of the other articles that I read, they almost like describe it as like a vow of silence. So I don't know if he didn't say anything at all, but he wouldn't talk about why he did it, who he's affiliated with. He just had this like absolute steely silence. Nope, not talking about it.
Just decided to just shut his mouth and see what happens.
Yeah, pretty much. He remained silent to protect the identity of his accomplices in the syndicate. Attempts to uncover their identities had proved fruitless due to Chana's silence, and because when they were contacting him, they were using pay-as-you-go handsets. So, like, the calls that he made on that Friday being like, woo, like, the fraud's successful, like, pulled it off, like, we've got all this money, it's in the accounts, nobody's noticed yet, like, jobs are good in. All of those calls were made to prepaid handsets, so they couldn't trace them.
Just burner phones.
Yeah, burners. Chana was even offered a reduced sentence for revealing the other players, but still refused to do so. Would not give them up for nothing.
A quality gang member.
Yep, not a grass.
Snitches get stitches.
Yeah, they do. Chana, they ain't getting none. The following day, Chana was charged with conspiracy to defraud, money laundering, and abuse of trust. Which, I quite like that. You are accused of abuse of trust. Because he obviously...
Well, he had access to that.
He obviously gained those passwords and stuff under very... Like, I couldn't find out exactly how he got those passwords, but...
And even negating the theft of identity, essentially, he has access to the ability to make those transfers into this holding pot.
Yep.
So the abuse of trust is that I would imagine they'll all sign something to say, you have to do this, like, this is bank policy or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And he's fucked over the people.
Yeah.
But he's mainly
and
fucked over
employers.
the bank.
Yeah, well, it's his employers that he was stealing the money from. Because the money at that point belonged to HSBC. So it was them that he's stealing from. Within a week of committing the fraud, he was facing jail. Sentencing him at Southwark Crown Court, Judge Geoffrey Rivlin QC said, "This was no silly prank. This was a carefully planned and very serious attempt to transfer a fortune and money away, and it almost succeeded. Others were involved, perhaps several others, and in the absence of any explanation from you, I must assume this was a planned and sophisticated criminal enterprise." Chana was then sentenced to 9 years in prison.
That doesn't seem a lot.
It doesn't
for the
really
money.
seem a lot.
For the level of theft.
Biggest ever in the country.
Did they recover the money then?
Yes, immediately. Yeah, they
Like,
froze
straight away?
it. And, like,
Okay.
on the Sunday, they discovered it, froze the money. It hadn't been removed from the accounts, froze it immediately, and immediately it was returned to HSBC.
I mean, that says a lot for their systems.
Oh, very quick.
Yeah.
That's 2 days after the fact,
Well,
very impressive.
Still, though, like 2 days is a long time for it to go, oh, wait a minute, there's 72 million
Yeah, well,
pounds
had they
missing.
removed it on the Saturday, you're
Yeah.
fucked. It's gone.
Yeah, totally.
So, the most worrying thing concerning this crime is that officers had no idea for how long the crime had been planned. They had no idea. They know that he was part of the syndicate, but they couldn't decipher, like, lots of different things. So they had many questions surrounding Chana's involvement, as family and friends had no idea of his double life, and it seemed so out of character. Like, everybody was completely bamboozled by this.
They say that about a lot of people, though. Like,
They do.
Like, even serial killers, like, oh no, I can't believe he did that. That's not like him, but he's got this twisted side to
Well,
him.
of course. So some believe he was coerced or threatened into facilitating the crime because it seemed unlikely that Chana was like a sleeper, as you'd call it, who was deliberately planted inside HSBC by an international criminal syndicate that he'd already met prior to his employment. People thought that was just very, very unlikely.
So he was more just like what's the word? He was like the fall boy for it.
Kind of. So it seemed more likely that he was deliberately targeted by organized fraudsters in some way. But again, he wouldn't speak. They have no idea.
He's probably scared.
Well, yeah, you'd shit yourself, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
This is a massive, like, fraudulent syndicate. Like, if that's the kind of, like, thing that they can pull off,
Yeah, totally.
And like another article I read, I think it was actually the BBC's one, describe it as he followed orders. He did what he was told.
He was the patsy.
So yeah, and like that article was very like, not, I wouldn't call it biased, but like we're very much of the opinion he was just doing what the syndicate had kind of ordered him to do. But then the other ones I read were more just, well, nobody knows. Like, he wouldn't talk, so who's to say it wasn't his idea?
Yeah, it's all just conjecture at that point.
Yeah, you can't tell. So at the time of his arrest and trial, a close family friend said, he was always a good boy and knew what he wanted to do with his life. He fucking hates prison. He's surrounded by the worst criminals. They're in for violent crimes. It wasn't a violent offense. It's not right. I think there are a lot more people involved. It wasn't something he did out of choice. He would have known something like this would come back to haunt him. I can't say whether he was threatened or not. The police might think they found their man, but they haven't.
Okay.
Yeah. You'd say that about your pal if like this was rumbled and it was your friend. You'd be like, I can't believe this.
Depends who.
Friends also pointed to his charity commitments as evidence of his good character. Just months before his arrest, Chan had completed a 30-mile walk for Oxfam and finished the Nike 10K run in the name of charity as well. So he was like a very thoughtful person.
He was practicing escaping.
Training.
He was training to get away.
In particular, mystery surrounds the Moroccan link. His family say Chana has never been to the North African country and has no connections there. So how on earth he'd even know of an account to siphon money into over there? They can't fathom.
No, they can't fathom, but they've no idea what the conversations he's been having out with of the family dinners and things like that.
Well, exactly. You don't know who he knows. Do you really know a person?
No.
His family say Chana has... Oh. Detectives, meanwhile, believe that deciphering who set up the account in Casablanca holds the key to the mystery. But despite British investigators requesting information from the Moroccan authorities, no assistance was forthcoming. They had they weren't helping. They didn't give a shit.
Oh, right, okay, so they didn't know. I thought you meant they didn't know, so they didn't do anything. But actually, they just went, meh.
I think it was a bit of both. We don't know anything, so we're not going to look into it. We've not committed any crime. Somebody in your country has siphoned this money into this account. It's nothing to do with us.
Yeah.
We don't know.
Just because the account's here doesn't make it our fault.
Yeah, pretty much. Officers were adamant that whoever was behind the Casablanca connection knew what they were doing, though. Obviously. Chana appears to have been briefed meticulously on what to do, is a lot of people's opinion, but again... He won't talk, so who's to say?
And without finding records of an email account or something that's got instructions in it or text messages or whatever, you're never going to get that.
Yeah.
And if it was all burner phones done,
well, exactly.
Then he's been told what to do and then just gone memorize that.
Yep, done.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I've not actually been able to find any articles or information on this case since 2008 when it happened.
Oh my, that surprises me.
Nothing.
The biggest potential theft in British history.
Nobody followed up on it. So I don't know...
Bloody rolling media.
I don't know if he's been released, but I presume he has, because he was sentenced in 2008 to 9 years, and we're now 11 years down the line.
So he's out somewhere, yeah.
He's out. I don't know if the syndicate was caught. I don't know anything.
That's what I was going to say. My pure speculation based on what you've told me is that there's no way they're going to catch who was involved in it.
And that was their biggest concern. They're like, right, this was almost the worst thing that ever happened in terms of money theft in the country. But we caught it, we stopped it, he's in prison, all good. But who on earth were these people that he was involved with?
Yeah, because that's the big thing
that possibly orchestrated it. Are they going to strike again?
Yeah,
how long was this being planned for? Do they have people on the inside?
It's that future protection thing, really, isn't it? How do you...
That's their biggest worry.
How do you protect against that, especially if there's a guy working at the bank that's essentially... I mean, he has to take the fall because if they can't prove anything else.
Well, he did
he
at the end
actively
of the day,
did it.
He did the transactions. Yeah. So even if he was under instruction, he carried out the transactions. So kind of on him.
Oh, totally on him, yeah.
But then it is one of those things that if he was targeted by this at the end of the day, they are international. Like Morocco, they've got an account in Morocco.
Yeah, absolutely.
This international fraudulent
Crime syndicate.
Yeah, that like looks at stealing money in this kind of way. If he was targeted by them and threatened to this level that he would commit that crime, then presumably that threat level was so high.
Yeah.
You've got to wonder what's on the line, you know?
But at the same time, it takes a good amount of inside knowledge to know that accounts like that exist. So he has to have played a part in it.
Well, yes.
He has to know, I could do this into this account. You know, so although somebody's come up with, unless it's somebody else that works for a bank and maybe they all do the same sort of thing, I don't know. But somebody somewhere has gone like, how can we do this? And he's gone, well, actually, you could maybe do it like this. Like I say, I'm just...
Yeah, I suppose I don't know that much about the inner workings of financial transactions and stuff.
No, neither of us do.
But like, I don't think it's so much about the destination of the money, because I think the department within the HSBC banking group that he worked within, and definitely his colleagues at least, those large amount of money transactions, I don't think they'd go to like always the same bank accounts. It's whatever they're doing for whatever. Okay. And I don't think it's like so much about the destination, more about the person who commits the transaction, that they'd go, oh, Joe Bloggs.
Who pressed enter?
Moved that amount of money.
Yeah, okay.
Well, he does that 10 times a day. Meh. You know?
Right,
but the two transactions, very, very quick succession, that large amount of money leaving the HSBC banking group, oof, that's what
triggered it.
Because he did it within, like, he did one, then he did the other. It wasn't like he did one, wait until the end of the day, did the second one. It was one, then the other. Poof.
Yeah, so his mistake has been doing it on a Friday.
Doing it too quickly, doing it on a Friday, and then not zeroing that holding account, which should have been zeroed, because that immediately raised the red flag. They looked at it and went, those two transactions were way too close together.
That kind of goes against what I was saying then there, because he obviously had the knowledge base to know that that's what happens with it, and he's obviously at some point gone, oh, fuck, and panicked and left, because if his normal life entailed doing massive transactions, he would know what to do.
Well, yeah. That's, I think, why he had to steal those passwords.
Yeah.
And then also to hope that he wouldn't be the one that was looked at, you know, and gone, why did you make those? It was two different people, two different passwords. Done.
It's mad. If I want to send you 10 quid, I need to get a wee silly blue calculator out and
isn't it?
Put my card in it and put passcodes in for a tenner. You know?
It's madness, isn't it?
Yeah.
But that was almost the biggest robbery ever committed in the UK. But
no, I would say that's probably still the biggest robbery, because it happened.
It did happen, but it was recovered.
Yeah.
Whereas the Cash Depot one, most of that was never recovered. I can't remember the exact figures, but I remember that not all of it was recovered and not all of them were caught.
No, I remember when we were talking about that, like, there was certain amounts went missing.
Yeah, there was like bags that
they
got
all
away.
Buggered off to Spain or somewhere, didn't they?
Yeah.
And then there were certain amounts that didn't make its way back to the rightful owner as such.
Pretty much. But yeah, like, it was annoying because I started reading it and went, this is great, and started writing it, and then it was like I was like getting all my different bits together, like, this is who he was, this is how it happened, this is like what happened when they found it, bit. And then I got to like the end, like, okie dokie, oh, they never caught the syndicate and he never talked and there's nothing more that I can find. And I was so mad by it that I ended my research on my phone with the little shrugging lady emoji.
So if you're sitting listening, and if everybody could just shrug, that'd be lovely.
1, 2, 3, shrug.
I think she's got a noise, the shrugging lady. It just goes, There you go.
So, yeah, that's the story of Chana.
That's frustrating.
Isn't it?
Well told, as always.
Thank you.
But frustrating.
Very frustrating.
He served his time. He did his jail sentence.
Yes,
so
he did.
Fine.
Presumably, he's out and stuff. I don't know. There was just nothing. I couldn't find a damn thing.
Do you want to hear a random fact about a load of money?
Yes, please.
Just because I brought up the Millennium Dome, it triggered a wee memory in my head. I've never been to the Millennium Dome.
I've not either.
But apparently they used to have £1 million in a case, a glass case there that you could see.
That's fun. What for? Just for seeing?
Just, yeah, as part of an exhibit.
In what kind of notes, do you know?
I presume 50s, because it wasn't pounds. Was it in a case?
That's quite impressive,
do you know,
isn't it?
actually, I'm going to look it up now, because I don't actually think it was in a case now that I said it. I think it was in like a tunnel you could walk through. And you walked through over £1 million.
Stop it.
I think so.
That's really fun, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's very trustworthy. I quite like the idea of that. Definitely not £1 million by the time that everyone's walked through it, though, isn't it? Oh, look at that. There's glue on my shoes.
I believe it might have been under glass.
Oh.
It wasn't like the...
Well, then it technically is in a case.
Yeah, okay. But it definitely wasn't like that, the crystal maze.
Oh my
God.
God.
It's just blowing around
Get in the
as you
dome.
walk.
Isn't it? You're in a dome. It sounds like Crystal Maze.
By
the way, have you seen the remake of Crystal Maze with Richard Ayoade?
Not a fan.
No, I'm not either. For those of you that don't know what the Crystal Maze is, please do look it up. It's a rather charming British game show from 80s, 90s?
90s, yeah.
It's fantastic. It's based on whimsical adventure, I'd say, where a team of people have to create, complete crazy riddles and puzzles in order to win money. And all through it, you get so many tickets, I suppose. And at the very end, they put you in a very large dome, and they put all the tickets in, and then they fill it with air, and you've got to catch as many as you can.
It was Richard O'Brien from Rocky Horror Picture Show fame.
Yes, it was. He was the little butler. You go, hello.
I think he wrote it. Very good musical. Have you ever seen it live?
No, but I'm so dying to. If I'm going to go, I'm going to do it properly, full costume. I want to take my toast. I need to take my newspapers. I need to take my rice.
Do you know all the things to shout in the right place?
No, I don't think so.
So yeah, you have to shout slut at the right time.
Fantastic.
And I'll talk you through this off air another time, but there's certain things that you have to shout at the right time.
I know the throwing stuff. I know about the throwing things at people thing. But as far as I'm aware, quite a lot of venues now, when you do go, do check, like, frisk you for toast and stuff on the way in, because they don't want it. So and especially, like, the cleaning bill must be a nightmare.
No, you're not supposed to throw things anymore, but anytime they mention Janet.
Slut!
Yeah. Literally every time.
Damn it. Janet Slut!
Yeah. There's the £1 million, though.
Oh, show me. Oh, it's on a wall! I like the big sign. This is £1 million.
Yeah, there you go. So anyway, we're going to stop talking nonsense now.
Thanks for listening and bearing with that.
Yeah, and thank you very much for that, Nadine. It was lovely.
Thank you.
As always, if you've enjoyed what you listened to this evening, please do join us on our social media channels. It's where we get a chance to talk to all of you. You can find us on Twitter.
I was going to say social media.
Social media. You'll find us on Twitter.
Twisted Britain.
You'll find us on Facebook.
Twisted Britain.
And you'll find us on Instagram.
Twisted Britain.
If you'd like to get involved and have a proper chat with us, please do join us on our Twisted Britain discussion group.
Twisted Britain discussion group, Facebook. You'll find that on.
Great place to be.
Yes, it is actually. Lots of thank you very much to everybody who keeps sending me all the Krampus stuff, because I am loving it. It is very, very close to Krampusnacht, and I am fucking psyched.
Yeah, and every time I open up, there's a new Twisted Britain discussion group post. I'm
it's
like, oh,
so
cool.
Lovely.
Open it. Hey, Nadine Royal, look at this. All right, I'm here too.
Also, what's been cooking on the discussion group, which I'm psyched about, is one of our very, very lovely people, Andy, has been coming up with a really, really cool and fun board game, Twisted Britain themed, which is mental.
Andy's one of our patrons. He's a lovely, lovely human being for not only being one of our patrons, but coming up with this idea. Andy, if you are listening, which I presume you are, please don't feel any pressure by Nadine bringing that up just now. You don't have to finish.
No, you don't have to finish it. I'm just psyched about it.
We do love.
There's like loads of fun things going on in the discussion group, which is all I'm trying to say.
However, if you do finish it, Andy, do get in touch. We'll have a chat. If you would like to join our Patreon group, which is also ever growing, which is mad.
I know, which is
please do find us at the top of all of our social media channels, or you can go into patreon.com and search for Twisted Britain. You'll find us there. By joining Patreon and you not only help support Twisted Britain to carry on going forever and ever and ever, or until one of us either kills each other or
or just dies off.
Well, I mean, that's grim. Thanks for that. It'd probably be me. I'm a lot older than you. But by joining us on each tier, you will get access to an extra episode every month.
It always comes out on the 15th. We cover kind of wherever the bloody hell we feel like, to be honest.
Yeah.
It's sometimes crime, sometimes it's odd things. Bob's done a lovely, I think it was our first one, you did the origins of lots of different British nursery rhymes, which I enjoyed massively.
We've done some different bits and pieces on there.
We have.
You'll also get some lovely badge to show that you are a fan of Twisted Britain.
And a little card of thank you and recognition. There is a few that were due to send out. We are waiting on our badges coming in the post, and they will be on the way to you in the post also.
And we will make sure that anything that we get new merch-wise, we will send to all of you.
Yes, indeedy. And speaking of merch, if you really would like to support us and show the world how much you love our podcast, which would be fabulous, you can find our actual merch on spreadshirt.co.uk, which if you just actually Google Spreadshirt Twisted Britain, comes right up, top hit.
It will do.
You can get t-shirts, beanie hats, badges, mug.
Sweet hoodies.
Lovely Christmas present if you know a fellow fan.
Indeed. Anyway, shush you.
Okay. I've been racking double rums. What do you want from me?
It's time for us to end this for this evening. It's always a pleasure chatting to you. It's always a pleasure that people want to listen to us. So thank you very much, everybody, for listening, and we will see you again next time.
Thank you, love you, bye.
Thank you, love you, bye.
Don't steal money on a Friday.